Hey, what's up everybody? This is D with Kickin Bass TV. Today we're going to be doing some fishing down in the metro area, and we'll show you guys how we set a new personal record for the most bass we've ever caught in a day. We caught 12 nice largemouth like this one right here, and we caught them all within about a 90-minute window. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below and stay tuned. Thanks. Alright guys, so today we're back over at Kendrick Lake in Lakewood. If you saw the two previous videos from last weekend, you see that we had a fair amount of success for the first couple times out here. We ended up catching a couple of nice largemouth just under the 4-pound mark. And while we didn't catch anything quite that big today, we did set a new personal record for the most bass we've caught in a single day. We caught 12 nice largemouth bass, all within about an hour-and-a-half window. And this is the first one right here. We're catching these guys on a cotton Cordell, rattle trap style, super spot lipless crankbait and a red craw imitation. We're employing that same yo-yo technique that we discussed in the previous video. And I just want to tell you guys, if you practice this yo-yo technique, especially with the lipless crankbait this time of season, I guarantee you're going to start hooking up more fish. And as you can see here, this first one came in at just under 1.5 pounds. Now, for those of you that maybe didn't catch our last video where we discussed using that yo-yo technique, we'll go ahead and show you that right now. It's a super effective method, especially with the rattle bait right now in this time of season. The bass are starting to become more aggressive, move up into the shallower waters, and they're smashing this thing. So essentially what you're gonna do, you're gonna toss that rattle bait out, let it sink for about 3 to 5 seconds, and then you're just gonna lift up your rod until you feel that vibration from the rattle. And once you feel that, tip your rod down, and on the down tip is when you're going to reel up your slack, and that's where you're going to get 80 to 90% of your strikes, because essentially what you're doing is you're emulating a dying or a sick shad. So on that drop or that flutter down is when the bass are going to hit it, because that's its most vulnerable point to the bass. So if you're not paying attention, your hookup ratio can be a little bit low when you first start practicing this technique, but eventually you'll develop that rhythm and you'll start to feel why they call it the yo-yo method. But as I said before, guys, if you guys practice this technique, I can promise you that you're going to start catching more bass, especially in this early pre-spawn season. Now, it's not to suggest that you can't still catch fish on a rattle trap by just burning it in or working it across the bottom. But honestly, we find 2 to 3 times more hookups by using this yo-yo method than any other method when it comes to the lipless crankbait, especially in this pre-spawn time. Now, if you'll notice, there's a lot of large rock submerged here in the first 20 to 30 feet of the shoreline, and that can be a huge gathering point for bass, as they pretty much love any kind of structure or any kind of cover like that for a number of reasons. Number one, it can help them hide if they're trying to feed or if they're trying to hide from predators in the lake. Or it can also be beneficial in the way that it'll absorb the heat of the day, in that it'll become a couple of degrees warmer than the temperature of the water itself, and the bass can definitely feel that difference, especially in this end of winter, early springtime that we're having right now. So they love that couple of degrees warmer temperature, and they'll butt up against anything underwater. One thing you can do if you find that you're catching a lot of fish in a concentrated area is you can take a weight from each fish real quick. Grab your scale. Very rarely will you find that 2 fish weigh exactly the same weight. There should usually be a couple of ounces at least variance. And what this will do is it'll help you differentiate between whether or not you're catching the same fish over and over again, or if you're sitting on a nice healthy school of fish and there's bigger, more fish to be caught down there. So just something to think about. As you guys probably already know, we never keep any of the fish that we catch here at Kickin Bass, but one of the things that can be difficult when you're fishing from shore in a super rocky, really shallow area like this is getting a clean release on a bass. And it's one of our main priorities to make sure that we keep these fish alive when we catch them. So it's imperative that you don't keep them out of the water very long, and when you do release them, you don't want to try to chuck them out in an area like this and risk hurting them or slamming them into a rock or something like that, because you want to continue to have these bass grow and spawn and produce more and more fish so that the fishing stays good here in Colorado. And one way to do that is just lay that in that flat water, and 90% of the time you find that that fish, even though it's only 6 to 10 inches of water, can navigate through that rocky area and get itself back out into the deep. Another thing to stay conscious of, at least if you're interested in preserving the fish, is extracting the hooks from them without minimal damage. Now, a lot of the time, they're just going to hit that right in the tip of their mouth. And if your reaction time is good, you're going to set that hook real early and you're going to get the side of the lip into the cartilage. It's not going to cause any harm to them. Every once in a while, if your reaction time is a little bit slower, or if they just completely choke that down, that can potentially pose a problem, because those hooks can become a little bit more difficult to get out of the deep part of their mouth. Now, you're going to want to keep a pair of long Hemo pliers with you, as what I recommend to extract those in those situations. As you can see, we caught 12 today. We didn't harm a single fish. We didn't make a single fish bleed. So we consider that a pretty successful day of hookups. So it's just something else to be mindful out there. Now, about this time, my cousin showed up with her 2 boys, who I took ice fishing a handful of times this winter, and they were able to catch a couple of trout through the ice up in Evergreen, and they really had a lot of fun doing that. But they've never had any luck getting out and trying to catch a fish in the open water. We took them a couple of times last season without any luck, so I was super excited that Enzo just happened to be here right now, and he got a chance to reel in his first big bass, and he was super stoked about it. Number 10 right there. Boom.
No, I've been weighing them, dude, because they're all different. That's number 11.
There you go. This one was number 12 on the day, and this was the last one we caught, and it just happened to be the biggest one too. It wasn't as big as what we caught last Saturday, but it was about 2.57, I believe, and yelled for my cousin Gage to come down and get this one. It was a little bit heavier for him since those guys are so young, but he was totally stoked to see that he caught such a huge fish, and I was really happy that both my cousins got to come out and catch their first big bass.
All right, so number 12.
Overall, pretty great day of fishing for us. We set a new personal best with 12 fish in just under 90 minutes, and we got to share that day with our family and our loved ones. So couldn't ask for a better day. As always, the best way to support us here at Kickin Bass TV is to hit that subscribe button down below and hit that bell notification to stay up to date with all our new releases. Until next time, I'm D with Kickin Bass TV.
Subscribe!